Welcome back to episode 2 of, shall we call this the Stoplight series, Elliott?
I like it.
I like it. Okay. So today we're going to jump into yellow light items. Last week we did green light. So I'm excited to jump into this. Elliott, where do you want to start with this one?
Well, I think you said it perfectly. Our life lives in yellow or something like that.
Well,
Or our
yeah,
life is a yellow light.
I feel like my job is yellow light. It's just to be the crusher of bad ideas, maybe.
Yeah, I'll kick this off. I think, and this one might catch some people off guard, but I think credit card balances can be okay.
Okay.
Now, I know there's a Dave Ramsey person out there right now screaming and telling me I'm wrong, but I will say there are credit card companies out there that offer 0% balances for a certain period of time. And I think if you're financing a big purchase and you don't necessarily want to come up with cash or it's not good from a tax perspective, investment perspective, whatever it is, it can be okay for a temporary period of time. Is it something that I would necessarily do? Probably not, just because it's not in my values to want to hold the balance and have that occupy brain space. But I don't think it's inappropriate, particularly when there's no interest. So would I hold a 20% credit card balance? It would be an interesting life circumstance where I'd have to that one would be very nuanced for me. But I think this is where it sort of gets in the yellow light where I think it could be okay. Whereas a lot of people scream from the rooftop, no, never carry a credit card balance. I'd push back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm very debt adverse. I'm saying that I'm just throwing that out for perspective here.
That's fair. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think the biggest sticking point for me on the whole 0% thing, number one, is the debt already accruing interest? Is this like a tool to restructure debt? That's probably the most appetizing way of going about
Sure.
something like that. But with the caveat too, you sure as heck better have a plan to pay that off, because if you don't,
Yep.
by the end of that intro period, you're probably going to accrue all the interest you would have accrued anyways. And then you kind of just paid the 3% fee or 5% fee for nothing. So, yeah, I would agree with that, but definitely not. I will say too, on the credit card thing, I understand hard things happen. But maybe go back and listen to that green light episode if you didn't. And there's definitely ways to avoid having to carry a credit card balance, but sometimes it just does get out of control. If you have to carry it for a month or two, is it great? No, but I understand sometimes things have to happen.
Yeah, life happens, and I think it's important to recognize that. And that's whether this is a proactive or a proactive thing, right? If you have some credit card debt and you're like, hey, I don't want to pay 25%. I can qualify for that card that's 0%, and I'm committed to this, and I know I'm going to pay it off within that year sort of teaser rate. All good. I do want to stress paying it off, because I've also seen, and this is not necessarily a credit card, but I've seen home financing projects and that sort of thing where it's they're very low rate or 0%. But if you don't pay it off by this date, all of that debt then gets recapitalized to the beginning, and it's an absurd rate at that point. So really, I just want to stress that, because I ran into that recently. It didn't happen, but it was in the fine print that we were reading.
Yeah. I think I think one last thing I'd put on this one, to me, this is much more of a subjective question of what are you carrying debt for? Was this a medical bill or a massive car bill, or was this you going and balling out on vacation? I'm probably gonna look. I'm not here to judge, but
I'm good either way. If you want to ball out on vacation on 0% and you got a way to pay that off, or you have cash in the bank but you're just choosing the interest, again, not my preference.
Well, that's more of a maximizing thing. I'm saying more if you're carrying an actual interest bearing debt.
Gotcha.
I think that's a very different thing. Financing experiences or financing, depreciating things, I don't know. I'm sure we don't feel great about brand new cars either, but that could have probably been a yellow light item. But yeah, I think that's just how I would look at it. I would feel much more empathetic or sympathetic to a client who is doing something like that versus someone who's just racking up credit card debt and not thinking about next month and how the heck they're going to pay that off.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is where yellow light's perfectly appropriate for this credit card balance, despite a lot of personal finance gurus who just throw out blanket advice of never carry credit card debt. Well, that's not feasible for everybody. And sometimes it can make a good reason to do it.
Absolutely. All right.
What's the next one?
So highly controversial, and you're the perfect person to do this one with. I'm going to put Roth conversions in the yellow light bucket.
In full agreement.
That is shocking. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, equally for every one person who's out there saying credit card debt, never have it, never carry a balance, there's probably an equal amount who are saying like always do the Roth conversion or Roth only. I think it's kind of become like the financial planner equivalent of whole life insurance at this point. And I don't know.
It's quite the comparison, Matt. I don't know whether to be offended.
Well, we're all selling something, right? But that's something where, I think a lot of times, like, and I've certainly seen this, like, I think there's just a blind, like, approach to, especially the mega backdoor Roth, because what a freaking superhero sounding strategy that is, right?
That one's pretty good if it makes sense.
But I have literally seen people who have come in, like, they're not even maxing their Roth 401k, and they want to do this, really fancy sounding strategy. And it's like, maybe you should just start by contributing to your Roth instead of,
fair,
something else. But too, right, I think a lot of people like who are gravitating towards this strategy are probably at the higher end of their income earning years, right? Because it is kind of required at that point to do some backdoor situation. But that also probably means you're going to be in one of your highest tax brackets that you've ever been in. And it's not to say it's a bad strategy, but it may be a bad strategy or a worse strategy now than it could be. So I think there's a lot of nuance, a lot more certainly than what's going on in the conversations out there on the social media or the big news places saying that you must have a Roth IRA, right? What are your thoughts?
Definitely. Yeah, I like, and Matt's joked here, like I'm a big proponent of Roth conversions, but we run it for every client to determine if it makes sense. And for some clients, we have the conversation and it's a pretty clear, like, yeah, probably does make sense. We can never guarantee it because we never know what future tax rates are going to be. That's always the unknown variable here. But you can look at someone's situation and say, hey, pretty confidently, unless tax rates go down, you're probably going to be in a higher tax bracket, whether that's high Social Security, high pension later on, really large IRA balances, kids that are doing well, combined with large IRA balances, and you're going to die at some point and they're going to have to distribute that in 10 years. Like you can look at someone's situation and say, I feel pretty confident about it. You can hit the yellow situations of like, I don't know, this is more like a hedging. I don't like, you might be in a similar tax bracket. Do we want to hedge tax rates maybe going up, right? Or your kid's doing well or whoever's getting these assets. And then there's the, unless tax rates really go up, you're like the tax rate you see today is probably the tax rate you'll be in the future. So and that's just sort of simplifying the buckets of how I see this. And I think to your point, a lot of people fall in that middle bracket. I think in the world that we live in, sometimes a lot of financial planners are working with people who have saved a lot in IRA balances and or have high incomes at some point with Social Security and everything else. So it gets told a lot more than the average person that they're experiencing in their finances.
And this is the thing, like, I think that's awesome about our profession. Like, there's so much more access to financial planning now. Like, I will go hot take here and say, I don't think you should be doing Roth conversions unless you have a financial plan. Like, there's too much nuance. I mean, think about this, right? If you're 40 now and you have $1 million saved in your 401k at work or whatever, and you're planning on retiring early, like the FIRE thing is very real these days. Or people want to do, but you're going to have some low to no income years before you have to start Social Security or you have to worry about Medicare or all these other things. So like, there's so many more options to wind that down versus doing like massive conversions now and trying to convert it all super fast. So that's just going to be my hot take.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in agreement. This is definitely a yellow for me. It makes sense for some people. It doesn't for others. And for some, we're just guessing, and that's an okay decision too, one way or the other.
Yeah. All right. What's the next one? Unless you have any parting words on that.
I would just say, like, understand this. And I think, Matt, you're getting into like why it's important to work with a financial planner. Or I'll take the other side and say, do it yourself, but do it well. And so, like, you need to essentially forecast what your financial situation looks like into the future, and then do a tax projection on top of that.
I didn't say you had to work with the financial planner. I said you had to have a financial plan. I just want to clarify that.
Okay. But basically, this is going to require some analysis. It's not as easy as like, and this is what I see online sometimes, is I'm in this bracket without any other information or like very simple information. Should I do a Roth conversion? That for me is not the way to do this.
Well, not only that, but being in this bracket, right? There's a large range of numbers that you could be in that bracket.
Yeah, you're on the bottom, you're on the top. Where do you fall with Medicare?
Yeah. Bottom of the 24 versus top of the 24, very different answer, probably, right? Depending on the size of the conversion.
Yeah. Okay. The other controversial one I'm going to throw out is employer match. And I know this sounds weird coming from a financial planner, because it's like, you should always get your employer match. But I think there are some life circumstances that trump going for the full employer match, right? And we talked about it in the past of like, if you can't afford your bills, right? Like cash flow is just tight for whatever reason. It doesn't make sense to then put it in somewhere that it's hard to get it out without penalty. So,
but Elliott, the tax savings.
Yeah, I mean, you can add up the tax savings and determine, does that help your cash flow maybe? But if you're already doing it, you're already in that experience. So for me, it's one of those things where, yeah, like I would like to say 100% of the time, you should get the employer match in a perfect world. But life happens, or like you talked about life circumstances, right? You're launching a business, you're having a baby, you're buying a house. Like I'm like money's meant to be spent for enjoyment for our lives. So, if you miss out on an extra $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is that you're contributing, because it means that you can go do that really cool thing that you wanted to do, or what's really important to you and your family, do that. Like that's going to bring so much more to your life than that employer match. So I think that's where we need to disconnect sometimes that emotional and like technical answer. What are your thoughts?
100% agree. I'm actually going to expand this to like HSA territory, just because I think a lot of people like love that they can get free money from their employer into the HSA, or they can save taxes. But I don't know. I've seen a lot of people like have way higher out-of-pocket health costs than they need to, and they can't afford those higher out-of-pocket health costs. So I don't know. I always like to say, like, nobody cares about being comfy on a sinking ship, right? Like, so if you're sinking at home and you're going into debt just to save into the 401k, or you don't have an emergency fund, or you're trying to be like super tax efficient, like if the boat at home is sinking and it's not feeling good, like don't try to make a sinking ship comfortable. Like that's just really going to be my short answer on that one.
I like that. That could apply for a lot of things.
100%.
Don't make a sinking ship comfortable.
Or don't try to make a sinking ship comfortable.
That's a good visual.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, again, the match is great. Free money, get it where you can. But at the same time, and I think it's really funny. I don't know if your experience with clients has been the same, but a lot of people like don't want to talk about their cash flow or don't want to talk about spending, when that really drives like everything else that you're building around that. Like if you don't know where your money's going, how much is coming in and how much is going out, like there's no way you're going to be able to calculate how much you need to save. Even if you do, you might not be able to save that much. So what's the point of that? You really have to have a firm understanding on that before you start trying to take, advantage of all these other things. And the spending is really the foundation of your house, right? And if that's messed up, they say don't build a house on a sinking foundation, like that's another one, right?
Everything's sinking today.
Yeah. I'm just in a sinking mood, I guess.
No, I hear you. And I think a lot of that stems like people don't want to talk about it because they don't know, right? In my experience, like they don't know where it's going. So it's hard to talk about.
Yeah, or it can be a hard conversation too. Like, and I think
Sure.
that's, you know, if you are struggling with that, like you need to find someone who can talk to you non-judgmentally about it. Like, it's kind of the philosophy I take with my clients. Like, look, as long as, you know, 1 + 1 = 2 and you're not going into debt, like I really don't care where you spend your money. Like, that's more on you to decide where you
Yeah.
see the most value in spending your money. Like, I don't like I've said this a million times on the podcast, but like I don't like spending money on my car. So I don't, right? And that's a really powerful thing if you can just tune out. That's where lifestyle creep or keeping up with the Joneses comes in, right? If you're spending on things you don't even care about to impress people that you probably don't care about either, like, why are you doing that? You know?
Sounds like we should have put yellow or a new car in the yellow category.
Eh, no, it's
That's
fine.
okay.
It's
What's the last one?
yeah, what is our last one here? This is, I like that we're ending with this one because it's going to start to lean into, you know, our red light spice category. But it would be having too much concentration in a single company or a single investment. And so this is where I think we landed as our 5% 5% mark of your total investments being kind of the yellow or the line in the sand. So why don't we turn that over to you and we'll see what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, Matt mentioned 5%. I would reframe this as what you're willing to lose, but no more than 5%. Right? Like,
Yeah.
don't go to 5% if you're not willing to lose that, but more so like, what are your play strategies? And this could be like, just like, I think I've talked about, like, I limit myself to one stupid trade per year, and I call it that. And I haven't done it the last few years because I'm back on my savings and need to get that in line before I allow myself these other things. But it's a reminder of like how quickly those things can go wrong. So whether that's you following Wall Street bets, you talking to a friend about their hot investment tip, whatever it is, sort of your play account where it's not boring. It's the fun part of it. And again, I don't think investing should be fun. I think it should be super boring and just on autopilot for the most part. But if you're tempted or you want to do that, limiting it to what you're willing to lose and or up to 5%, I think that's a good, I don't know if it's a good framework, but it's a yellow light acceptable framework.
I think what Elliott's trying to say is calculated gambling. I think that's what you're saying, right?
If you want to. Again,
Yeah.
this is a yellow. Again, not a green. Like, don't feel like you have to go out there and dedicate a certain amount of money to this. But if you need to or want to, I think putting a framework around it, this is the better way to do it.
Yeah. And I like that you call it a play account, right? Because usually when you play a game, you either win or you lose. And that can feel really great or it can feel terrible. And don't do what you see some people on Wall Street bets doing, where they're mega margin, like open calls, uncovered calls. Like, it's just like, oh, yikes. Like, that's a lot of downside risk. So again, I think this is something like you should have a financial plan before you even consider going too heavy into day trading or individual trading or play accounts, because you need to know what you can afford to lose so that you don't set yourself up for failure. For some people, it could be more than 5%. I don't know, but I would agree with you wholeheartedly on that one.
Yeah, this is sort of a tangent, but it's scary how easy it is on some of these websites to open an account on margin or with riskier options trading strategies that people don't understand what the downside is in terms of either your investments getting sold off or having to deposit cash. Like it scares me when I read about it, and I understand it.
Yeah, that, and I mean, maybe we should put this in the red light episode as a bonus item, but like the prediction markets, like that whole thing,
that could be its whole episode, a whole episode.
All right, we'll save that for another time. But I do think I would agree with you. Like, I'm not calling a recession or calling a crash, but it does feel a little, 2008-esque in the sense of Like, there's a lot of really complicated things going on in these accounts, and the applications are almost too easy. Like,
They make it feel like a game, and it shouldn't be.
yeah, exactly. But I think that's a good place to wrap up because now I'm like itching to go down to the red light. But
we'll wrap up yellow and move into red for later.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.